Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
Today we're paying our second visit to the 2010 World Cup. After a minor error from Rob Green in the opening game, the Three Lions are ready to get back on track. Their opponents will be Algeria in one of our most requested games.
Stranger, that's what time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me.
A minor error from Rob Green. A minor error from Rob Green. Really?
I don't know if you'd have caught it in the last game, really. It didn't really come up much.
We're back. We are back, my friend.
We're back in 2010, aren't we?
In real life, we had a little break, and this is the come down.
Yeah, very much so.
This is the come down to reality. This time last week, we were sunning it up watching Liam Gallagher at the Etihad.
Yeah.
And now we're going to talk about England versus Algeria from 2010.
Wow.
We'll get onto the reasons why a little bit later on. Let's get into the time capsule zone then. I'll start.
You start, mate.
I found it really difficult to find anything good from 2010.
Yeah,
I really did.
It's not great, isn't it? The more I delve into it, the crapper it gets, really. And it's just like, oh, it's this era, isn't it? But I think yours is a very good shout, actually.
A bit of a wasteland, but I did manage to find a bit of gold in there. Series 1 of The Trip.
The Trip, brilliant.
The Trip. I mean, it's hard to... I think one of the reasons I'd put this in, aside from it being just a brilliant series, so funny and all of that great stuff, it's really influential. I think a lot of shows have copied that format since. I know it wasn't 100% original, and you've always had like a bit of almost like Baddiel and Skinner Unplanned.
A lot of kind of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Well, it's like them playing different versions of themselves, but they're pretending they're the real version.
I just think that The Trip, I don't know, something about it has resonated. I guess it's kind of the move towards almost like a foodie culture as well, that with Instagram and it's just really chilled out to watch and focuses on beautiful scenery. I feel like and I mean, what's your thoughts on the show? Yeah,
I love The Trip. I think it's brilliant. I'm not as mad as when it went to Sky. I think it kind of lost some of the charm and some of the enjoyment that I had for it, but the first two seasons on BBC are fantastic. I think they're both great in it. It made me kind of realise what a real good comedic actor Rob Brydon is.
Yeah,
I
amazing.
I always really liked him, but I just thought the idea of having to go on holiday with him and Steve Coogan just hating how he's always on, like even to the wait staff and to everybody else around him. It's just relentless being with him constantly, and it kind of shows why Coogan's really downtrodden in that as well. Like no matter what he does, people just like Brydon more than him.
I would disagree that it lost some of its charm, but that's your opinion when it went to Sky. Do you have a favourite impression from the show?
Oh, I do love the Mick Jagger. The Brydon Mick Jagger is just incredible. And Coogan, though, comes up with some of the ones, because Brydon does one and then Coogan will do another one. You're like, wow, that's just in there. Like Coogan's got some really sneaky, great ones as well.
Yeah, I would go either Mick Jagger, as you say, or I do like when they're both trying to do Woody Allen, because they're both pretty good at it.
And it's different eras. It's like the Michael Caine. They're both very good at different eras of Caine as well.
With the really nasally old man because they smoke too many cigars and stuff.
And it's like the gums coming over the teeth or rising up and all that. And it's when you get very old. I mean, we definitely shouldn't try and do one.
No.
I'm holding back trying to do one.
I'm really proud that we haven't. One more. I like the David Bowie when they've got the younger one and then the older one as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we do an impression, let's save our dignity, because we've got to keep all of that for the game that we're covering.
Yep.
We're going to need our flipping dignity.
I'm not going the full Mick Jagger and having him. He's having another one at 72.
Wow, that's definite.
Ever met him?
I have.
I was at a party.
Yeah.
I was leaving, and I heard from the balcony, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Well, he didn't do the full, but, and I looked up, and he went, "Don't throw those bloody spears at me." I said, "What?" He goes, "Don't throw those bloody spears at me."
Yeah. No.
He was doing Michael Caine.
I know. What you find is that he speaks like, sometimes it's sort of like that, sort of, but it's actually quite posh. And sometimes he's quite sort of, you can see that it's quite actually, you've got that sort of public school thing going on, you know, you get something deep like that. But But and you know, you've got the old sort of peacock thing, you know.
What's your time capsule pick from 2010?
So 2010, again, I found it a bit hard, but I do remember something I was really enjoying in 2010, and it was My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. Kind of seen as, it's an incredible album. His mess was an absolute, his personal life was an absolute mess. It's kind of really reflected and bled into his work here as well. And kind of like few artists really lay their soul out there while making something so good and so weird at the same time.
Do you know what was messy? I'm not the biggest Kanye West fan. I do like some of his songs and some of his albums, and this one has never really stuck for me. Is it a bit long? Is it quite a long one?
I think it's when he started going very long with them, and it's kind of like after this, I kind of like blur out of it really. A lot of his other stuff I know what it's on, but this one was the one where it was the final one where I kind of went, that's on there. That's what this sounds like.
There's some amazing tunes on it, but even with those, I end up listening to like 4 minutes of them, and then I'm like, okay. I'll probably end up restarting it from the beginning because they are great. But what informed this mess? Do you know?
It was a lot of stuff about kind of his wife at the time had been caught up in certain kind of like sex scandals. It was a lot of stuff about him. Kind of the way he would tweet a lot. It was it was the first bit really when Twitter went quite mad, and you were like, God, have you seen what this person said on there? Which you don't.
Have you seen what Darren Bent's put on Twitter?
Darren Bent was like the first Twitter footballer, wasn't he? It's like, let's follow Darren Bent, and then like a couple of years later, you're just like, why am I following Darren Bent?
Yeah,
he's got nothing interesting to say. Like, when you go on your Twitter and you're like, why am I following this person? This is like
just because they were there early on.
There early on, and I think he would just always use it constantly, and he just got involved in all sorts of stuff with emails getting leaked and everything. But
I think it was quite a massive selling album, wasn't it? Dark Twisted Fantasy.
I think it was up there on like the Billboard top albums. It won kind of all the prizes really for changing stuff as well. And I think for us to so far, I can't even remember what we put into the 2010 the first time round, but for us to get to this point with an album, and I think actually looking at it, I'm really glad I put this in. It's a bit hard to talk around because until you listen to it, you're not really quite sure what's going on with it, and you need to kind of revisit it quite a lot to get it. But something I really like, and it's going in now.
I can't even remember what I put in the first time. I wonder whether it was The Trip.
I think it was Shawn Michaels' Undertaker 2 from memory.
Oh, yes.
So we were struggling back then early, weren't we?
Yes, there's always a wrestling reference. And I didn't think we'd get one in today, but there it is.
We've done it.
All right, then, why did we choose this game? I think you mentioned in the introduction part of the reason why we chose to cover this game.
So this game took place 12 years ago today, as it's been released. So we took it as an opportunity to go back and watch this game and watch the 2010 World Cup. What we've decided to do is that we've scheduled it in. So by the end of the year, we'll have covered all the 2010 World Cup. So, strap yourselves in for that one. It's my decision, not George's.
I was going to say, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there because Nick is punishing me.
You made me watch that Northern Ireland game.
And if you're still holding that grudge.
I mean, I did the Scotland one, so I've got nothing to talk about, really.
If you're getting your 2010 World Cup news from this podcast and you're probably doing some maths in your head now thinking, hang on, they're going to do it by the end of the year? Surely we don't get to the final. Well, we don't want to give you any spoilers, but I'll just say this. Well, so it's also one that people seem to have a strong memory of because it has genuinely been requested quite a lot, which baffles me.
Yeah, I think we can kind of say it now. It's kind of what people say is maybe the worst England game ever. I think we could easily say that up top. People have tuned in. They probably know what this is.
Yeah, it's the worst in my lifetime. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean,
but it's not even the fact that it's the worst. It's more like England get battered in certain games, or it's really crap performances and exits from tournaments that are disappointing. It's just a terrible game from start to finish.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, we really have a job on our hands here. This may be the shortest episode we ever do.
Well, good night, guys.
Yeah, good night. So before we start to look at the state of football, which we have a slightly twisted format for today because having covered this tournament previously, we've had to improvise. But before we get there, just a quick plug for our Instagram and Twitter pages at @isvis_England, and a quick plug for listeners to get get in touch, drop us obviously a direct message on there or a comment, and we'll obviously respond. But if you wanted to drop us an email with something a bit more substantial, maybe some attachments or files, not naughty files.
Hangout. You want to hang out?
No Zoom links.
No.
You can get in touch with us via email at isthisenglandpod@gmail.com. Now we're going to press forward and look at the state of football. So basically, we talked about the build-up to the 2010 World Cup last time when we covered England versus USA and what was going on in football prior to that tournament. So instead of doing that again, we're going to look at the major stories from the group stage. So kind of this England-Algeria game is the second round of games. So we're looking up to that point.
So we're going to, at this point, do the whole of Group A just because so much goes on in it. And you kind of look and you go, actually, well, you would do maybe B and a couple of others. And you kind of, by the time we come back to them again, we may have forgotten what had happened previously. So I thought, you know what, let's dive in and do a group. And when I say do a group, we're kind of doing the other shambles that happened at World Cup 2010. There is another team that went through just hell, really, and were awful.
I know, and they were the reigning... No, were they the reigning champs? They got to the final, I think.
So they got to the final of the previous World Cup in 2006. So we are covering Group A of the 2010 World Cup, and it is South Africa, who are the hosts, Mexico, Uruguay, and France.
France. Yeah, I mean, let's deep dive France because this was one of the most shocking World Cup stories of all time, really. As we say, finalists in 2006, pretty sure that Italy beat them in the final.
Yeah, Zidane's last game in football as well.
And they're always favourites or thereabouts for a World Cup, and they had a good squad at this time. Quite a pretty good squad on paper.
I think on paper, I think they had a really good team. It was just the fact that they had so many problems all around it. So kind of diving into it, France manager Raymond Domenech was under severe pressure before the tournament, having led France to a disastrous European Championships exit, and then a World Cup qualifying campaign that ended up taking them through the playoffs. So they didn't even qualify first in their group.
Now, I remember the playoffs game very well, not fondly. But they were drawn against the Republic of Ireland in the playoffs, winning 1-0 in Dublin, but fell behind in the return leg before a Thierry Henry handball assisted William Gallas for the equaliser in Paris. This caused... I've never known a goal cause this much uproar.
No.
It was like... There's been a few times when England have gone out of tournaments, like, the Sol Campbell years where he keeps...
Yeah,
and then, you'll hear, a Chinese whisper, a week later going... apparently they're looking into replaying that game because of it. It just never ever happened.
Proper bullshit terms, isn't it?
Yeah, but this feels like the closest it came because the uproar was related to the handball.
Yeah.
So people will probably remember if they were watching football at the time, Thierry Henry's handball. It is an obvious one. We've got an image in front of us now and we can share that.
It's kind of on the goal line almost. He takes it down the left-hand side of the pitch and he keeps it in the pitch with his left hand. And I can't remember if he puts it onto his foot or the hand actually puts it into the path of Gallas, and then Gallas just heads it in. And every Ireland player is around the referee instantly.
Which is fair.
Which is fair. The referee's not seeing it, and I can't see where the referee is, but you kind of understand because you just don't know what's happened. There's no VAR at the time. The linesman, maybe they're on the other side. I'm not sure. It's not given. It's crazy it's not given, but it's not. And then you get, in the following days after the game, the FAI released a statement asking France to replay the match as France had a moral obligation to do so, telling the FFF to look at themselves over the incident.
Look at yourself.
What have you done here?
Oh my God. Again, that's the kind of thing can I remember from memory, Arsenal playing Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So, years ago.
So there was something about one of the Wednesday players was injured, and it meant that
Carney, wasn't it, who
scored? Yeah.
And then that is the only time,
and it was replayed.
It was actually replayed because they kicked up such a fuss. But this is international football, mate. This is a different pace of life.
And it's kind of like of the era of when we're done, we're done. We're well away from the era of replays in lots of games, like replays in finals, semi-finals, all that had kind of gone out the window because it's like, we've just got to push on because we've got more football to get into. So tough luck, everyone.
Yeah, a moral obligation. They've really gone for the jugular there, haven't they? The Irish FA. But I mean, it wasn't just them. Obviously for pundits and fans alike, this was sort of hot topic. Damien Duff weighed in with a bit of a what do you call it? A tin pot theory or a
crackpot theory, tinfoil hat. Yeah, that's
tinfoil hat, crackpot theory.
Yeah, he done everything. He brought everything with him.
So he said it was a conspiracy to get France to the World Cup because Adidas sponsored the tournament and France, forgetting that Damien Duff himself was also sponsored by Adidas.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, they probably sponsored Thierry Henry and France a bit more than him.
They did, but it's kind of like going, well, you want them there just because of sponsorship. It's like, well, let's replay every game then, just for sponsorship. Like,
Until France win.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
well, why wouldn't you do that? And spoiler, they don't win this World Cup, so we just pushed on. But yeah, he also said that he blamed Platini for having a lot of influence in UEFA, which in a way he was right about, just not about this incident, really.
Yeah, sort of the right, he's making the right accusation, but for the wrong reason.
Yeah, it's like someone going down for like a crime they didn't commit, even though they'd got away with one previously.
And as is typical par for the course, Arsene Wenger's stuck his nose in and had something to say. I mean, he was probably asked, to be fair.
Yeah.
But what did he say about Thierry Henry?
So he said that Henry should have told the referee after the incident what had happened and come clean with it basically straight away and say, well, I did handball it, you've got to replay it. But I mean, these are professional sports people. I think Henry said that.
Would he advise his own player to do that?
Well, exactly. I don't know. He was part of the team actually to talk about who did replay a game. But there's incidents all the times with every manager. They're not going to come out and go, well, actually, we did bad there. They're all going to say it's the referee, and because he's one removed from that, he can kind of just sit and comment about it. I mean, Henry did issue a statement saying that he's not the referee, and if he hurt someone, he was sorry. I mean, even French President Sarkozy was asked about it as well, like almost in the original Parliament, basically.
Can you imagine a more, we've probably seen more like sort of forced, absolutely meaningless statements than that one Henry would have put out?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I bet he didn't even look at it to sign it off. He's just paid someone to just make this mess go away.
Can you make a statement? What's it saying? Make it up. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Whatever you fancy, really.
Sorry or something.
Yeah. In the it was funny because actually in the draw for the World Cup, there was a trial draw maybe a day or so earlier. And in the draw for the trial, France were drawn out and the person read out Republic of Ireland.
Oh, satire.
I know, yeah. Just like cutting in the room. The room would have loved it, wouldn't they?
Oh my God. What a cheeky git. But yeah, so that, despite all of the aggro, France do go. There is no replay. No. That it didn't happen. Can I shock you? So France head into the World Cup. But as you say, they've come off the back of a disastrous European Championships. And the camp isn't necessarily a happy one either, not a happy home life. So Raymond Domenech had intended to leave Thierry Henry out of his starting lineup going into the tournament, and he had done so in the warm-up games. He claimed that he hadn't had the conversation with Henry about it, but a week before the tournament, Henry said that they had. So I'm not sure what each is trying to get out of saying that.
No, they're already airing all their dirty laundry, aren't they, in public? So
he's dropped him.
Yeah.
And
then he's saying that basically he is in his plans, and we're just testing some stuff out here. But apparently a week before the tournament, Henry came out and said, well, yeah, he told me last week he wasn't going to play me in the tournament.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But Domenech was going, no, we've not had that conversation, not at all.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, proper airing that dirty laundry.
And he said that if he didn't accept his place on the bench, he wouldn't be able to go to the World Cup at all. And Henry was captain at the time as well.
Do you know what he should have done?
What?
He should have grabbed the microphone and gone, I did a handball! It was me!
It was me, Austin.
But he didn't take it, did he? He didn't want to be on the bench. I mean, what the hell is he doing on the bench?
Well, I think he was on the way, and I think he was about to sign for New York at that point. So he'd not long finished at Barcelona. His powers were going, but in a young French team who were promising to a point, really. We'll look at one of their teams later, and you kind of go, Henry's not getting into that side. It's quite crazy, and Henry not the captain. The armband went to Patrice Evra. So as we know him now, Patrice Evra was asked to calm down all this stuff and be the man about, and like be the sensible person. Like, what were they doing? Just
having a quick look at the strikers they took: Nicolas Anelka, Andre Pierre Gignac, Sidney Govou. Now that is a forgotten name, and Gibril Cisse. That's not great, is he? That's not great at all. I mean, They're all above,
they're all fine.
Cisse's 28, Govou 30, Anelka 31, and Gignac 24. So
Henry's about 32, I'd say, about that time as well.
you got that spot on.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be long until Benzema would start making a name for himself, would he?
Yeah, how he's not popped up by then. I think he may have been in that Lyon team who were doing well around the time too. But yeah, Henry does go, and yeah, it all starts to fall apart pretty quickly, actually.
He does go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, and now we've got to get to it actually falling apart. So the opening game of the tournament, this is back to the group stage now. Is it Group A? Yeah.
Yeah, Group A.
So France sitting on the sidelines watching and waiting and wondering what's going to happen. Well, the tournament starts with a bang as South Africa score the first goal of World Cup 2010 in Johannesburg, accompanied by this iconic commentary.
Taylor, what's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala! Goal! Bafana, Bafana! Goal for South Africa! Goal for all Africa! Jambulila! Rejoice! Bafana, Bafana have popped the first cork of their day of days! Sip Shabalala!
Oh,
I think we may have even watched that game together, actually. I think because we were watching the England-USA game. I think I was round maybe for the weekend, and we just thought, yeah, this is going to be good, actually. This is what we want. A World Cup starts with a goal like that, with commentary like that. Perfect.
yeah. And the Vuvuzela, that was our first exposure to the Vuvuzelas. Following that, so the second game of the evening was Uruguay versus France.
Mm-hmm.
How did those disastrous buggers get on?
Uruguay were down to 10 men late on, but France looked a million miles away from the all-dominating team of 10 years ago, and they drew 0-0. Yeah, not good at all. Their starting lineup consisted of Govou, Gorkov, Toulanon, and Diaby, with Nicolas Anelka preferred to all-time top scorer Thierry Henry.
So Uruguay, who'd been quiet for quite a long time, that's a good result for them, a draw against France.
Especially down with 10 men as well. I mean, we had South Africa drawing their game 1-1, Mexico. So it's all kind of even and all still to play for after round one.
Yeah, in the second round, Uruguay placed themselves at the top of the group with a 3-0 win over hosts South Africa. Unfortunately, that kind of dream seemed to be over there after quite a good start. But, for football lovers out there, it was beautiful time because Diego Forlan found a new friend with the much unloved Jabulani ball.
Yeah, for some reason, he was one of the few players at the tournament who seemed to just fall in love with it and just be able to use it correctly. I remember I watched one of the goals that he scored in this game, and it's just from so far out, and it swerves all over the place. And the South African keeper can just get nowhere near it. And when you see a lot of the other goals of this tournament, a lot of them are just kind of like deflections and keepers not knowing where the ball's going, but no one ever seems to strike it cleanly apart from Forlan.
And he was in amazing form as well going into the tournament, I think, at Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, he'd been at Villarreal and Atletico, and yeah, he was kind of in his peak years here after his kind of torrid time at Man United. But yeah, he'd done really well there, and you just think, right, next game tonight. And the next game saw a team in green gain revenge on behalf of Ireland over France. Mexico running out 2-0 winners thanks to Man United's soon-to-be striker in Javier Hernandez and Blanco,
the legend.
He scores a penalty in this game. I'm not kidding when I say he takes it from 10 yards. Well, he starts his run up 10 yards outside the penalty area.
Yeah.
It is such a long run up. I've never seen it before. It is amazing.
He's like the Super Beckham, isn't he, of Mexico, right?
Yeah, he's just been around forever, and every tournament you kind of think, okay, this is his last one, but he just keeps popping up, and yeah, he put...
When you look at the age, I can't do maths, so going back to the time, whatever, I can't think of how old he would have been, but Hernandez is 34 now, and Blanco is 49 now. Yeah. So there's a 15-year age difference between the scores of those two goals. France, though, that is well and truly scuppered. Are they out then?
Yeah, so they're pretty much out because they need to win by a silly scoreline, basically, to go through against South Africa, to go through in second potentially, and they also need a result to go their way from memory in the Mexico-Uruguay game. And after the game, the L'Équipe called the team Les Imposteurs.
Yeah. Well, that's nice of them.
Yeah, well, more from the keeper very shortly.
Yeah, well, we've already mentioned that there's not a happy home life, and at half-time during the Mexico game, Nicholas Anelka, of all people, led an attack on Raymond Domenech. Not physical attack, he may have been slightly physical, but more verbal, because there is a quote. He was subbed at half-time for saying, "Go get fucked up the arse, you dirty son of a whore," which was printed on the front page of L'Equipe the next day.
Yeah.
Which Anelka later sued them for. So is he denying it?
So I think I don't know. I saw that he has actually sued them for that quote, even though it's pretty much confirmed he said that, and that's why he was subbed off.
Don't you think that is such... It's only like... You got to be really European to call somebody a son of a whore.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen in England.
No, I guess son of a bitch is a term that's used in other countries that people actually, that's the worst thing you can say about someone, isn't it?
That's softer, I think, than son of a whore.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
we don't need to get into that.
I mean, none of it's good, is it? Let's just say it with that. And and when Anelka came off in that game, it wasn't for Henry, who was sat under a giant blanket. It was actually for Gignac as well. So Henry doesn't even come off the bench in that game. He's so away from all the drama, or trying to be anyway. But by him being away from it, he's almost kind of making it at the same time.
Did Anthony Martial refuse to warm up for United, or there was somebody who refused to warm up in recent memory?
Recent memory. I always remember Carlos Tevez refusing to warm up for Man City in the Champions League as well, wasn't it? Under Mancini, when they were in Germany, I want to say.
Yeah, that's the ultimate talk sport fodder, isn't it? That
Yeah.
we're taking your calls all night. How bad is he?
How many weeks' wages should we give to the army here right now?
And it doesn't really get any better in terms of morale. There's further arguments in the French camp, allegedly because they are bored and isolated, just as England, we've discussed, felt. I think Gerrard said it was like a 5-star prison camp or something like that. Yeah. France are actually a bit more isolated. They were located on a resort only accessible by boat, so they don't really have the town to go out into at time for meals and what have you. Yeah. Who thought that was a good idea with these characters?
It's like the Woman in Black, isn't it? It's kind of, you've got to get across this at a certain time if you want to make it over there. I mean, no wonder they were going out of their minds, just doing nothing but fighting all the time.
And they're falling like dominoes. I mean, Captain Patrice Evra has a row with the fitness coach and then withdraws from the team himself.
Well, he withdraws the entire team from a training session they're going through onto the team bus. So he just goes, right, nobody's training today, refusing because of...
On the bus.
Now. And it's like refusing because Anelka's been sent home after his comments about Domenech as well. And Domenech, of all people, was left to read out a statement from the players saying they were, without exception, in opposition to the decision to send Anelka home for calling the man who was reading out the speech a son of a whore. So they're making him read out the statement saying, we think you're crap, basically, and we're with the other guy.
But did he do a bit of a Kendall Roy there?
Oh,
because he kind of flipped it on them, hasn't he? Really,
kind of getting in front of the problem.
Yeah, well, he's almost gone. I'll leave it up to you. But he called me a son of a whore, and they are all happy with that.
Yeah, they're all happy with it on the bus. Yeah, apparently they wrote it out on the bus as well. Like they got a bit of paper and the only time you saw Evra coming off was with this bit of paper, which is.
I tell you what, if you did the PR for that France team in that tournament, from that you're going, Ireland in the playoffs. This should be fine.
Look, they're very popular.
Yeah, but you think, it should be fine. We should win. Then you have to apologise for Henry, and then all of this. Henry stood back and watched it unfold, smug as anything. Apparently, he said, "I could have been the big brother of this team, but I wasn't anymore. I felt as if I'd been set aside. I wasn't talked to as before. Everybody has their own reasons." Lovely and vague.
So wiping his hands with it, isn't he? Well, I'm here, but it's nothing to do with me.
Let's get back to talking about Uruguay. I mean, like they're the only positive that we've been able to speak about so far. So in the final round 3 of Group A, Uruguay secured top spot with a win over Mexico, thanks to the one and only, soon-to-be pantomime and real-life villain to some, Luis Suarez. Mexico qualified as South Africa failed to beat France by 5 clear goals, even though the host, South Africa, did bow out with a win against the Bleu.
Yeah, definitely.
So awful.
Yeah, I mean, my God, it's just incredible, isn't it? From start to finish, and then the fallout keeps happening. Anelka's banned for 18 months by the French FA. Evra's suspended for 5 months as well. And in Domenech's book, he referred to the players as a bunch of imbeciles and said, "I just wanted to be sick to to cry, to leave.
So French.
I know, yeah. I mean, my God, England have got it easy, really, in comparison here. If all they've got to do is beat that, just don't do this, basically.
I'm presuming that would have been his last game for France then in that tournament.
Well, they're out, so they're done.
But he's banned for 18 months, which means he would have been
you mean like he doesn't play again?
33 by the time that... It would be so France to have just brought him back, though, wouldn't it? With like another manager.
Well, it's like Zidane, isn't it? He's technically banned from certain competitions because he had a red card in his last game. So you do kind of think, well, he's still serving that ban, really, isn't he? Zidane.
Of course. Well, sorry, listener, for the... not sorry. I enjoyed that. But
I think it's a bit of joy looking at someone else's. It's Schadenfreude compared to what we've got about to go through.
Absolutely. We've never really spoken about a team at length like that. I quite enjoyed it because it distracted me from what we have to cover, which is England versus Algeria. We have a lot of catching up to do, I guess, from last time, even though in real life terms, it's only been a few days between the USA game. There was a fair bit of fallout. Yeah. Let's start with the goalkeepers. Rob Green famously chucking the ball into his own net against USA. There's got to be some repercussions for that.
Yeah. It'd been seen as a bit of an embarrassment for the team, but especially for Rob Green, obviously. Green says that Capello didn't even speak to him after the game and pretty much didn't say anything to him for the rest of the tournament, already adding to the terrible atmosphere that was going around the England camp at the time. That's gonna
Gee everyone up, isn't it? Look, lads, ignore the free cooler in the goal. You idiot. He didn't even have the decency to call him an idiot.
No, he just didn't even bother speaking. I don't even think he spoke to him at half time after the game or during the game either. It's just like, well, you're done with now. That's even worse than having a go at him. You'd rather he shouted at you.
Can you imagine the work that Capello's eyes were doing to say those words for him that he didn't want to say? Oh my God! Frank Lampard took the complaining lead as well. We're bored. He said, complained about the training facilities and the boredom the England players felt, saying, once the football starts, all eyes are on you and the scrutiny is intense. We started with a draw against the USA, and if your tournament begins poorly, it can be hard to press that reset button and get the confidence flowing again. So he's bored and seemingly has a lot of time to think about how much scrutiny him and the team are under. It feels like they've given up.
Yeah, it already feels like all that goodwill we talked about at the start, about the good qualifying campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Capello kind of coming in and being the man, changing everything, getting everything he wanted. Almost within one game, you think, God, what a disaster. But it really, once the outrage had stopped about the USA game, it was in, a draw in the opener against the toughest opponents in the group. In hindsight, not really a bad result and not really an awful performance. I think we thought that was going to be a terrible game, but I thought England were all right in it. They weren't great, but
absolutely, it would give me confidence that they would go on to win this game that we're going to cover today. It wasn't that bad at all.
No,
in hindsight, it was a really bad result and a bad mistake, as you say. There's not just the England team that are in trouble. There were repercussions back home for ITV, who, as we discussed last time, had cut to a commercial, I think, during the England's goal in that game.
Yeah, they'd shown they buggered up by showing an advert instead of Gerrard's goal at the USA goal game, and with 1.5 million houses unable to see the goal
in HD. It was the HD folk.
It was only HD people as well. So all these poshos, they didn't get to see it, did they? I mean, ITV blamed human error, and the broadcaster's transmission provider Technicolor and said a take next trigger had inadvertently been activated instead of showing 21 seconds of adverts and a blank screen. So they managed to get off the hook from Ofcom. Thankfully, they took no further action. Everyone will be glad to know.
I mean, that's peak advertising sales there, though. There could have been a conspiracy there. How much would you pay? Like, how much would it cost to have a 20, 30-second advert in the middle of a opening World Cup England game?
Yeah.
That's premium. But we can't even remember what the advert was for. So
I definitely can't either.
Didn't work, but Ofcom took no action. We look back then, and I think while the reaction was bad internally, and it just seemed like everything was a bit of a shambles, there was still a bit of rope that the England team had. Like the press weren't necessarily killing them just yet.
No, I think by the time you get to this game, I think everyone's just had a couple of days to calm down and go, you know what, England usually don't win their opening games of groups. It's okay. I mean, Mr. England himself, Kevin Keegan, he said that their efforts were good enough to win any match.
Any match.
Any match is very strong.
I mean, they weren't good enough to win that match, which is the only one they could have possibly played, and it wasn't a great match.
No.
Any match? Yeah. I don't think so.
No, I don't either. That's just Keegan being very, very over positive, which we love him for, and that's a great thing. But yeah, he's not done himself any favours there. In Group C's other opening game, Algeria lost 1-0 to Slovenia, and weren't expected to do much at the tournament really. Their most recognisable player in two English audiences was Bel Hadj, who played at Portsmouth the previous season. They also had Wolves' Guardiola amongst their ranks, who would start the opener on the bench, really.
You said it was a much better story in Slovenia. They'd lost 1-0 and they've got no players of note.
Well, actually, before the tournament, Algeria had finished top of their qualifying group. The only problem was, so had Egypt. So Algeria and Egypt are fierce football rivals, and with them joint on points, goals difference and goals scored, with an identical head-to-head, a tie-breaking playoff was arranged between the sides.
Oh, what was the one from the England versus Hungary game? Was it goal average? That old method of deciding titles. They could have just done that.
You know what? It's probably exactly the same as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, Egypt were no mugs themselves. They'd won the African Cup of Nations 3 years in a row, with a third coming the following year too. So Egypt are a pretty good side too in this big rivalry.
Wow. Had Algeria qualified for a World Cup before?
I think they'd maybe been to one, I want to say. They weren't like a really renowned African side, but this is kind of like for them to get there for the first time in quite a while, I think, is because on the 19th of November 2009 at a neutral ground in Al Merrikh Stadium in Sudan, Yahia scored the only goal to send Algeria to the World Cup. The scenes for the goal are amazing, as it's scored like the 40th minute, but the bench are pretty much celebrating on the pitch already.
Yes,
it's just amazing. And there's alleged crowd violence at the playoff, and the preceding match led to diplomatic tension between Egypt and Algeria as well. It's just crazy.
You want to see tension? Let's get into the game. It's England versus Algeria, 2010 World Cup at the Greenpoint Stadium in Cape Town. The date is Friday, the 18th of June, 2010. So England come into the game fourth in the world rankings, despite that 1-1 draw with the USA. Mm-hmm. Hoping this would be a bit of a reset. It feels like we had it was a mistake. It can happen to anyone, but we've reset. We're ready. We're changed men.
Yeah,
we can go all the way. And what better chance do we have to prove that than a game against minnows?
Yeah, I think minnows is fair. I mean, I think you're going to talk about the build-up in a minute, but England was so heavy favourites for this. I watched this in a cinema. I went out and watched this in a cinema in Telford, and thinking, this is going to be a nice Friday night. Everyone's going to go out, have a great time. England are going to win a big game, and it's just going to be a great night. Yeah,
I watched it in a nightclub in Wolverhampton.
Okay, we were both out for it then in weird places to watch a football game, ready for a party afterwards.
Friday night, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
And the previous game was a Saturday night, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
God, the World Cup gods were smiling on us.
Yeah.
In one sense.
Well, yeah, in one. Well, they weren't smiling on Rob Green, because he's not picked for this game. You'll be shocked to hear. And Capello said that he asked the players who we should pick in goal instead between Joe Hart and Calamity James, as he called them.
Fuck it. Imagine all of that happening. So Fabio Capello has, before the World Cup, we've spoke about how he wouldn't commit to picking a goalkeeper. And then right on the stroke of the USA game, he says, Rob Green, you're my man. Rob Green concedes to make one of the worst goalkeeping errors an England goalkeeper has ever made at a World Cup, losing England 3 points in the process, if you just take it by the measure that if that hadn't gone in, they would have won 1-0.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't speak to Rob Green, and then he asks the players...
Is Rob Green in that room?
I know, yeah. Who do you want me to pick in goal, Joe Hart or Calamity James? Calamity James? Well, Calamity James is sitting there thinking, well, it's not going to be fucking me, is it, after you've given me that billing?
Well, thanks for that, boss.
Yeah. Surprisingly.
Do I get a say?
James and Joe, they can't vote.
No.
I mean, the players must be like, That's your job.
Yeah, very, very much so. Yeah, I mean,
Like Carl Pilkington, bullshit man.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
flies in. That's your job. Like, should have told him there and then. God.
Good news for Capello though. Today's his birthday as we play this game, so he must have been in a
birthday.
really good mood to pick the
Where
team.
is my cake?
Fuming.
Rob Green's like, I brought you a bloody lovely watch.
No, Rob Green's bringing the cake in. He's like, he's going to drop it. He's going to go all over the floor, isn't it?
Yeah, he was going to give him another go until he did actually drop the cake on the floor. Well, we'll get to the squad in a minute to find out the answer to that Joe Hart or Calamity James question. But just a bit more group context. The game before this in the group was a 2-2 draw between Slovenia and the USA, meaning that if England won by more than one goal today, they would go top of the group and be in a really good position to qualify for the knockouts. Easy.
Yeah, exactly. We're back on track now. No problems. EASY, as the Sun said. It's just an easy group, isn't it?
This is the A.
Yeah.
Bring your A game, boys. Here are the boys. Surprise, surprise. I'm taking England. You don't even have a say in it.
No, go for it.
Because I am not pronouncing those names. Anyway, in goal, Calamity James gets the nod.
Definitely.
Right back, Glenn Johnson. Left back, Ashley Cole. In central defence, we have Jamie Carragher and John Terry. Right wing, we have Aaron Lennon. Left wing, we have Steven Gerrard. And in the midfield, we have Frank Lampard and Gareth Barry.
He's back.
He's back. And up front, Emil Heskey and Wayne Rooney, as was in the USA game. On the bench, Green's kept on the bench.
Yeah, amazingly.
Joe Hart, Matthew Upson, Dawson. Is it Michael Dawson?
Michael Dawson, yeah.
Warnock.
Not Neil.
Not Neil. I can't think of his first name.
Stephen, isn't it?
Stephen Warnock.
Yeah, he's a bit of a rent-a-gob now on like the BBC and TalkSport, I think.
James Milner, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole, Sean Wright-Phillips, Peter Crouch and Jermaine Defoe. So 3 changes for England. Firstly, with Calamity James stepping in.
Yep.
Secondly, we've got our Lord and Saviour Gareth Barry coming in for James Milner. And Jamie Carragher starts replacing the injured Ledley King. Let's decompress.
Yep.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
I have a few things that I am kind of interested to say.
Go on.
A midfield consisting of Gareth Barry, James Milner and Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
How much would you fucking trust that midfield?
I mean, that is the most boring midfield I've ever thought of in my
I
life.
know, but this is the most boring shit ever anyway. And we're playing Steven Gerrard on the left now.
But that had worked. That had worked for so long for England. This is back to...
For so long.
It worked for all the qualifying campaign. It'd been England had stormed the group. They'd lost one game. It's the last game that didn't count. They just stormed it. I mean,
8 games against shit opposition.
Croatia, they'd smashed twice, and Croatia had done really well. The thing is, though, with this, you've got... I think this is something maybe England obsessed a bit or two over. I think they were so obsessed with getting Gareth Barry back in the team. And they start him here, which I think is the right decision. And then you've got Lennon, Lampard, Gerrard. They're your attacking guys. Heskey did his role, and Rooney's kind of playing all over the pitch where he wants to. They're kind of gone, right, well, let's get back to what we know. Let's have the comfort blanket of the team, essentially, who'd done so well with us. I mean, the only difference is Jamie Carragher's back in, obviously, as you said, for the injured Ledley King. I mean, Carragher dropped like a 2 out of 10 performance, hadn't he, in defence? He'd been awful when he came on.
Yeah, oh, fuck. Yeah, Jesus Christ, he was awful. I can't believe he's got the pick. I'm still thinking about that Milner, Carrick and Barry midfield. You could play Gerrard just in front of him. You could still play 2 strikers up front.
A little diamond. You're going to leave Frank Lampard out.
Well, one of the 2. Out of the 2, I would choose Gerrard, but that's just me. And he was the captain.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen anyway. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jamie Carragher is in.
Yeah. Can he right the wrongs of that performance, really? I mean...
Can he?
It's better. Yeah, it's better opposition for him to go at is Algeria.
Yeah, it's more his pace.
His level, at international level, really.
What did he do in that game against USA for Capello to go, he's my man?
I think it was just not be Matthew Upson or Michael Dawson, if I'm honest.
Or Ledley King. He didn't die.
Yeah, pretty much. He lasted the game, even though he was like the reddest man on earth by the end of it. I think it was just that pace of Altidore just took him apart, didn't he? And he just wasn't prepared to come on. He gets pulled on at half time and he's just like, well, what the hell do you expect me to do?
So David James, as we said at start, was Joe Hart ever a serious consideration, do you think? He was only 18, wasn't he?
He's quite young. I think he may have only once played for England. He may have played in that Platinum All-Stars game, actually, on the car park that you talked about.
On concrete.
Yeah. I think he played in that, but he was still kind of such an unknown quantity. But it's kind of Capello's own fault for not playing him and going, well, he'd been great at Birmingham. And I think he went to City the next year, and he became their number one too. So he was ready, really.
He was ready in hindsight. It would have been a big gamble for Capello, and he'd already I'll say he'd already used his gamble on goalkeepers, but Calamity James, who he seems to have a fondness for calling him Calamity James. I feel like last time we called him that before the tournament.
Yeah, he has called him that quite a lot, and a lot afterwards as well. I mean, I think in a 4-4-2, I read about him as well. He called him that too.
That's nice. Do you want to have your best try at the Algeria lineup?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, listeners. I know you want to hear me try one of these difficult lineups, but I'm not that good.
Yep, it is. So they're playing an interesting system, actually. It's quite defensive. They've got Mboli in goal and Bruguera, Halish and Yahi as a back three. You've got kind of wing backs in Kadir and Belhaj with Yebda and Lassen in the middle. Boudabous and Ziani playing behind Matmore as well. So they've got a kind of a weird formation. They've got two number 10s who kind of drift out wide as the game goes on.
Yeah.
Nothing against the Algerian team, but when I was watching this game, it was just like, I don't know who the players in green are, because you are just so blind to all the errors and who is passing to who. The England team, I was exactly the same. I was like, I don't know who's picked the ball up there. It's just like your mind just goes soft to who these people are.
Boudabous is a good name, though.
He's still playing, I think, as well. I think I remember managing him on Football Manager a couple of years ago. I remember quite enjoying that.
They had a man sent off in the opening game, Algeria, and their goalkeeper Mboli's error had cost them a point. I'll touch on him a little bit more in it shortly. I don't think we really have anything else to say on that lineup, though.
No, we've kind of said there's two players who play in England there that we know as well. So yeah, we can kind of move on.
Let's have a look at the kits. England, they are wearing the same as they did against USA, so quite a classic white top, white shorts, white socks.
Yeah, very white number, isn't it? Yeah, we like that kit. I think we've kind of said everything we need to say about that as well. The lesser spotted green lime green, number for Algeria with some red and white stripes, which just stop partway through, then continue. It's a really weird kit.
Yeah. A note for England's awful yellow goalkeeper's top as well.
That's terrible, isn't it?
It looks like such an afterthought. It looks like Capello's gone, because they had like a nice dark green.
I liked that one. That was really nice.
It was nice.
It's just the problem. It's just like like Rob Green's kit.
Yeah, that's it. Capello's just gone, design me another one. Is he cursed?
It's like that. It's so bright yellow. It's like when you like highlight something in a document, it's that color, isn't it? It's like the last thought. You're like, I just don't care. Just make it yellow.
It's
that stands out.
So you can't miss it.
Yeah.
The green front one, nothing wrong with it, except, as you say, it is cursed.
Yeah.
The anthems, do we get off to a cracking start with the anthems?
It's not great, if I'm honest. John Terry is singing so loudly during it, you can hear him 3 people before you actually see him on camera. It's like, I think it goes to like R and Lenny, you just hear someone screaming it off screen, and then like 3 people later, there's John Terry appearing. So it's not a great one. And then the Algerian one, the announcer in the stadium asks for silence before the Algerian national anthem. It's, again, rubbish. You just have to say that, isn't it? It's no good.
Yeah, awful, really. Just a quick note then before we get into the first half. As a little bit of extra content around this game, we've looked back at the Guardian's minute-by-minute report, which is still available online, and you can look at it as though it were unfolding, written by Barry Glendenning. So we'll weave in some interesting bits here and there from that. I think it might be worth doing that for games where we can in the future, to see how people were reacting in real time to the performance. Just a couple of bits from that prior to getting into the half. It's Barry's take, Mr. Glendenning, the writer. It's his take that anything other than a win would surely constitute England's worst World Cup result since getting beaten by the USA in Brazil 1950. Anything other than a win. Do you agree?
Yeah, if they don't win this, it has to be seen as that, doesn't it? Because they put themselves in that bad position anyway. If they'd have beaten the USA, you think actually if it is a draw and you've got 1 game to go, you can kind of see that. But it's kind of jeopardy at this point already for England against minnows, who you expect to beat.
Apparently, according to the minute by minute, there wasn't much feeling of jeopardy in the ITV studio. Apparently, they were giving it quite a lot of big licks.
Oh,
this
really?
is all going to be fine. Apparently, Adrian Charles was giving it the big what could go wrong, kind of goading people into, giving really positive predictions, including Gareth Southgate, who was in the studio.
Oh, really? So Gareth?
So he watched this and thought, I want that job.
Yeah. Actually, I don't want that job because he famously didn't want the England job either.
I don't know what was said, but I can't imagine that he took the bait from Charles. I'm sure he was pretty measured.
I imagine he's a bit too smart for that, isn't he? Just like, well, let's not say anything yet. He may have just still been playing by that point, I want to say. Oh, no, he was probably, I think he'd been Middlesbrough manager maybe around that time. Just
a few stats just to get you in the mood then. This is the first ever meeting between England and Algeria. I don't know if that's a stat. It's a fact.
Yeah.
England have not lost any of the 15 matches they have played against an African side, winning 11 and drawing 4, obviously by this point. Algeria have failed to keep a clean sheet in the 7 previous World Cup matches they have played in. So that puts bed to the theory that this is their first World Cup tournament.
Yeah, it must be 2 then.
Must be 2. England's last 5 World Cup goals have been scored by a midfielder, 3 of them by Steven Gerrard. And Wayne Rooney has now failed to score in back-to-back competitive international matches for the first time since March 2007.
Kind of shows what good form he was in, really, for England, doesn't it? So
and Gerrard.
Yeah, Gerrard as well, especially at international level. I mean, Gerrard had kind of been the one vaguely shining light at the past World Cups and tournaments, really.
Yeah, they almost, now I'm thinking of it, they were almost a mini scaled down Beckham and Owen, when you just felt like one of them is going to score, and if Beckham doesn't win us the match, Owen probably will. It was like Gerrard. I think they did enjoy playing together, and I'm sure they both commented a couple of times because there were a few like nice assists and plays between the two. Well, it's took us nearly a flipping hour to get there, but we're ready to go. 15 minutes, from 0 to 15 minutes. Let's absorb it. What can we say about it?
I've just got for that nothing. I mean, the stream we have is a non-English commentary, and about 3 seconds of the build-up, and then the rest right up until kickoff is silent. So they talk, and then there's nothing said, and you can just feel the tension on the pitch because there's no commentary actually start to build. You see some of the England players, and they look quite nervous already.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think that's understandable.
Already, but like even not the idea of we can put something right, it already feels like something's rotten and that there's a real bit of jeopardy among them. I mean, Algeria kick off, Heskey wins it back immediately, Lampard gets it and instantly kicks it out of play, and there is literally every other England player around him available to pass to. He could pass to any England player, they're all open, and it's gone out already. This is the first thing that happens.
So, this is a good... do you remember we've said that if England go ahead early in a major tournament game now, we're not going to watch because it's game over. We're going to lose that game.
Yeah.
If from kickoff a midfielder kicks out to play, because the only other time I can remember that is Paul Ince doing it in the Scotland game.
Yeah.
You're not going to be in for a classic.
No.
Get your phone out, order some food, maybe just go to the bar for a bit.
Go back from the club or cinema you're in to watch this.
It's not worth paying for drinks that cost that much to watch this. Get cans. Watch it on your phone on the bus or something.
Honestly, it's just awful, isn't it? It's terrible.
We're only a minute in.
Yeah.
It's taken us a minute until we're greeted with commentators. They've missed the build-up and the kickoff. So they just start listing who all the English players' clubs are.
Yeah, you just hear like a name, you say Johnson, Liverpool. Like just very monotone going through it.
Capello's up after 2 minutes and he's screaming at the players and doesn't really have much reaction because the only incident of real note in the first 10 minutes is David James punching a really high cross, which could have been creeping under his bar away. Away-ish, and England do kind of just about get it away.
Yeah, just about. And the only other thing I can really note down is that Carragher, is ran at down the side of a pitch, much like Altidore did to him in the first game, and he's skinned. But he managed to shrug off this player, and hopefully, a bit of a better day out for the Liverpool player awaits as he almost slices across of Ziani straight into James' goal. So he avoids that as well. He's off to a bit of a better start.
Yeah, and then we get some really big action. On 13 minutes, guys. There's no goal, so we're not going to cut to a clip. And it's not really big action, but there is a lovely looking bird.
Oh, yes.
We see a lovely looking bird. And no, it's not. We're not working for the sun here. But there is an actual bird which has perched itself on the back of Algeria's goal.
Yeah.
Teasing. Come on then.
Yeah.
Give me your best shot. You've got what? How long? You've got 80 odd minutes to do it.
Yeah. It's weird. That's probably the second most memorable thing that happens in this game. I remember the bird being on top of the goal and everyone just going, what's that doing there? Like,
Yeah.
you've just never seen it, because at least there's usually some action or something happening. The bird is that content, it stays there. And I don't know if it stays there for the whole game, but it feels like it's talked about as being the cursed bird.
Yeah, it's like nothing's happened in this first 12 minutes, but it's been eyeing that seat up for a while. It's gone, shall I just... Well, if somebody's not going to have a shot in the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to sit there.
Yeah.
I'll give it a couple more... Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to fly down and sit on it. Like when you see a good seat on the bus or at the cinema or something. But yeah, when we say that nothing is happening in this game, we cannot stress enough how little is actually happening. Every time there's a shot, it's blocked. Every time there's a cross, it's cut out. Everyone's first touch is like a trampoline, and people can't even seem to do simple things like trapping the ball well. And apparently, according to the minute by minute, which we're referring to, throughout as a little companion piece, because we need more content for this game because nothing's happening.
We just need to know someone else's opinion of nothing happened, that we didn't miss something.
Apparently the ITV commentators had been going in on the Algeria keeper quite a lot. I know you mentioned that he made an error in the first game, maybe this is why, but
Yeah,
keep saying he
actually.
looks all over the place, but he hasn't had anything to do.
I just haven't seen that. I think there may have been a cross that's come in, and like maybe he's missed it, but again, that just wasn't noteworthy. I don't think any England players really near him. I totally didn't get that at all. And yeah, like you said, it just seems that no one can even control the ball. The whole game is like playing against a computer on a really high level, but you're both set on like ultra defensive mode. And like every time one comes forward and you start an opening, like, someone's straight on them to sniff it out straight away.
A little bit more zip in the England passing now. Lennon. It's going to break here for Lampard! Excellent save by Bolly to deny Frank Lampard. Well, England are moving the ball a lot quicker now. It's beginning to open up spaces.
It's 2/3 of a chance. 2/3 of a chance.
We've used a clip.
Oh, yeah. Frank Lampard has a shot at goal.
We've done it. We've got the content.
A shot at goal. A shot at goal from Lampard. Aaron Lennon plays a cross in. It's headed away to Lampard, who's 5 yards inside the area all alone. The control on his chance doesn't stick, and he has to dig a shot out with his left foot. Good save from Mboli, the keeper. But I'll tell you what, that's as close as it's got so far.
Yeah.
And that wasn't close.
No, not at all. It's an all right save from the goalkeeper from remember watching it, and yeah, it's that would have made the thumbnail for the highlights package. I'm almost certain.
Back to the minute by minute, and a contributor or a commenter or whatever you call them, people who email or text in.
Yeah.
Jim Harris, no relation, quipped Ari, the aforementioned bird. He looks pretty calm and settled. He obviously knows Heskey is playing up front for England. Ooh. You bitch.
That's so catty, that, isn't it?
So early on as well.
That is such like it's Heskey, isn't it? It's the easiest open goal you'll ever get from Emil Heskey as well, isn't it?
And every time I've seen Heskey so far, he's been great. So,
I mean, would you say he's good in this game?
No, time. I don't know how far we're in. Time doesn't exist anymore.
No, I honestly, you kind of look at this game. It's kind of like we're doing it avant-garde. You could mention something right at the end, and I'd be like, no memory of that.
Yeah,
it's just wiped my memory clean.
It's like that. Well, they say like it's just vibes, but it's not even vibes, is it?
What's the opposite of vibes?
Just existence.
I felt like just watching this, like I was actually doing like prison time or something. Yeah. It was just like, get your head down, do your thing, just do it. I mean, it felt like a legal obligation for us to do this podcast. I mean, it's like sitting through like, one of those talks where you get like some food at the end, like a dinner.
Yeah.
It's like, it was just like sitting through that. You've got to get through like this guy speaking like a blue pinstripe suit, and just like, are those barges over there? You're just like, right, is that 90 minutes? How long's gone? Nope, nothing like that yet. We're still so early.
Yeah, at 43 minutes, our man Barry Glendenning says this: England will probably win this match, but victory won't take away from the fact that their first half performance has been pathetic.
I couldn't even say that they've been pathetic. There's just nothing that's happened. Even Algeria haven't been good. Every time Algeria get the ball, you kind of like, they'll string a couple of passes together, and it'll just go out, or an England player will come in and intercept it, and then they'll do the exact same thing.
But with the expectation on England to let the game play out like this is quite pathetic.
It's on England to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit harsh this early on to go pathetic. I mean, maybe that's just Mr. Glendenning's take on it, but... I
just love England will probably win this match as well.
Oh, that's so optimistic.
What have you seen to make you think that?
I know,
It's got 0-0 written all over it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of a sudden, that's half time. We're at half time already.
It's taken us about 6 minutes to cover that. It usually takes us about an hour.
I know, it's ridiculous. I mean, all I want to do is see the bird again. Can we just get a camera on the bird? I think we'd actually, with today's kind of media, I think they'd be like, right, every 10 minutes, get a picture of that bird if it's still there. It can't be there because they would have shown it again.
Yeah, they would have. It would probably have had its own Twitter account.
Oh, definitely.
Even then, I reckon.
Oh, yeah, probably, because it was when Twitter was still quite new, as we said, and these things. You probably would have enjoyed that. I bet if we look that back on our like weird follows back then, we'd be like, oh, I'm still following the Algerian bird from the cursed goal, wouldn't we?
That's it. Big up whoever's got to do the highlights package for this game. I mean, what do you even do? So it's half time. Kevin Keegan has a take.
Yeah, he's positive to the end, isn't he? He said at half time, a draw wouldn't be a disaster for England.
Yes, it would.
He's probably just blown away that two sides could potentially keep clean sheets.
He's never seen football like this. I'm loving this. This is a bit different.
It's just going nowhere near the goal.
It's not usually my cup of tea, but it's all right.
I absolutely love it. I mean, we are a long, long, long way away from Terry Venables at Reese and a
You get the tournament you deserve.
Yeah.
And for us getting into that Terry Venables singing Elvis Presley, we deserve this.
With the 2 stars as well. I mean, that's straight in there.
I don't think England would have even had 2 shots.
No, I don't. Well, there's no way of knowing because it's immediately gone from your brain, isn't it? It's been erased like the Men in Black thing. It just like goes, yeah, you've got no memory of this.
Back to the minute by minute, so there were some interesting halftime comments. This one from Declan Kelly. Andy Townsend said towards the end of the half that it's not easy to break down a team who just get men behind the ball. I can only assume he was talking about England's negative tactics because Algeria have actually had the majority of the possession. I'd like to hear how Andy would spin that little stat so as to find some shred of silver lining for England while at the same time patronising the spirited Algerians. How about this, Andy? Algeria are simply a better football team.
Is that the
Somebody
whole thing?
is upset.
Oh, mate, that is definitely some angry bloke. Just like, well, I'm not watching the game. I'm just going to do the minute by minute here.
You were at a cinema. I was at a club. Declan Kelly was definitely at home on his own.
At home, on his own, on the internet as well, just fuming in his room.
Proper and send.
Yeah, so much.
I mean, does this ring any bells to you? We'll probably put a clip in. The only thing you could really compare this game to is an episode of The Simpsons when Portugal play Mexico in soccer.
Boring.
Come on, you schnorrers! Do something!
Halfback passes to the center. Back to the wing. Back to the center. Center holds it. Holds it. Holds it.
Halfback passes to center, back to wing, back to center, center holds it, holds it, holds it!
I can't bear this any longer.
That sums it up.
That is the closest thing, isn't it? And we've used another clip. That's a plus.
Well, if I remember rightly, in that episode, it was like a big advertisement for football when America was really like not into it.
It probably would have been around, that episode probably came out around USA 94.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get people into football. Right. It's like, do you want some soccer? And it's like a ball on fire off the barbecue being thrown at them or something.
And then they end up rioting because it's so boring.
Yeah, because they all start off really positive and happy. And then like, yeah, do this. And I think you've even got like Kent Brockman, I think we put the clip in of Brockman talking about it as well, which is just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a good advert for the game.
No, I mean, I was going to make a joke about having to set up like a Patreon for me to actually finish watching this game, but I think it may actually just have to be a Just Giving page. It's more apt. It's just despicable.
This is the point where we need to start asking our listeners to put their hands in the pocket, and because I don't want to do this, I don't want to watch this. Just as much as you don't want to listen to it, I don't want to watch it.
We're getting through this together. You've done this. All of you at home, just, wouldn't it be funny if they covered Algeria? No, it's not funny. It's terrible.
Well, we've got 45 minutes to go. Maybe it can change.
Let's do this. I think we probably talked more around that at half time than we did about the game.
I think so. The only thing of note in the first 10 minutes of the second half is the commentator, who has a little laugh at Ashley Cole calling him Cashley.
Yeah, he has a little titter to himself of like, her Cashley. Because it's weird when you pick out like vague English words from non-English commentary as well. And I remember just hearing that going, Oh, he's pleased with himself there, isn't he?
Yeah.
I remember watching this in the cinema, and I've seen some bad films in cinemas. I mean, I don't know if I'd rather watch those bad films. So I remember all films that I've seen. Two of the worst were The Dead Don't Die, which was abysmal. Supposed to be some weird dark comedy, which was terrible. And Locke, which was about a film about a man driving down the M6.
Oh, that sounds good.
It is terrible.
I tell you what, The Dead Don't Die has got a great cast.
The cast is unbelievable. That's what tricked me to get me into the cinema to watch it.
5.4 on IMDb.
Mate, it's lucky to get that. I don't know if I'd rather sit through this or those films again. I reckon I'd rather sit through the films again.
Yeah. This is just shit.
I know. It's so bad. I mean, I would love to see, like, you know, like the reaction clips when you see like Marvel fans or something in cinemas and they're all standing up cheering. I'd love to see a video of us in the cinema.
Is that a thing? People go to the cinema and stand up and cheer at Marvel films.
They just go mad. I mean, that's like Midnight Screaming America kind of ones. But like,
I presume that. Don't worry.
I mean, I'd love to see the video of us, me watching this game. I remember people screaming and they were just throwing stuff. It was just amazing.
Not in a good way. Back to the game.
Yeah,
there's a little foul.
There is something of note. Here we go. So, Carragher's booked for a foul on the edge of the England area when he blocks Yebda, and he's now out of England's final group game as well. So that is actually a permutation for the next game. And
something has happened.
Something's happened, and something means that it's influenced the next game as well.
So the timeline of that is Rio Ferdinand was famously injured in the first training session of the tournament, so he's not at the tournament. So England picked Ledley King to start the USA game. He got injured at halftime, so Carragher came in, had a nightmare, booked in that game, maybe looking not to get sent off in that game, and he's just been booked again. So now England are down to playing Michael Dawson or Matthew Upson in their final game against Slovenia. I was going to say if they get there, obviously they have to play that one, but again, should you bother?
It's terrible, isn't it? I mean, that's already something else that Capello's going to have a headache about, isn't it? Like, what do you do? Like, okay, he can't play the next game. Do I bring him off? He's terrible.
I wouldn't have a headache over that. I would just go whichever one of them I see first will play.
Also, when he's clearly so ruthless about people like Rob Green.
Yeah,
David James. What must he have been thinking of? Like, well, literally, if I make one mistake, I'm done. He must be still in the same thing. But imagine if you then got through. And then Joe Hart makes a mistake and you get through like to the knockouts.
Rob Green's back.
Well, yeah, it's just a rotation policy of just all right, who was shittest most recently? Well, you're at the back. Who was shit 3 games ago? Okay, I'm giving you another chance. Imagine like sidling up to Rob Green. Right, Rob?
No.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. How you doing, bud? So he's got to do something.
Yeah.
I forgot substitutions were a thing. They don't sometimes people say substitutions can change a game.
They can change a game.
If a game has ever needed changing, it's this one. Capello has reached into his substitutes bank and he has brought on James Milner and Michael Carrick to complement Gareth Barry in midfield. Can you imagine deploying that midfield right now?
Oh my God.
Now's the time.
Bring off Lampard and Gerrard. Get Carrick, famously the crab, and James Milner, who was injured and ill before the first game and was hauled off after 30 minutes.
He's actually taking off Aaron Lennon for Sean Wright-Phillips, the ineffective Aaron Lennon, but that seems a bit harsh on him. Everyone's been ineffective.
Yeah, you just take your pick of who's been worse, really.
He's a creative player. I mean, just try and run at somebody.
Yeah, I
don't think he touched the ball.
Barely. I think maybe for the Lampard chance, he may cross it in, and the cross hits a defender, and it just falls to Lampard. So he's not even done the good cross to do that. I mean, also in that incident, right before he's subbed off, he does make I wouldn't even call it a chance. He crosses the ball in, and Wayne Rooney doesn't head it. So is that a chance, really?
No.
If it's like one of those, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around, does anybody hear it? So is it a chance if nobody touches it? It's not, but it's on the highlight package. I watched after the full 90 minutes to see, did I miss anything?
We're going back to the, so Sean White-Phillips is on, and on 68 minutes, we're going back to the minute by minute. Mm-hmm. So a couple of takes here, one from Clay Campbell, who said, I don't know if Jonathan Wilson has previously covered this.
Oh, we're talking about a big brainy beardy person now, aren't we? Ooh.
I don't know if Jonathan Wilson has previously covered this, but Algeria seem to have hit upon the effective tactic of kicking the ball deep to Carragher and then waiting for it to come back to them in a better position. He's done you there.
Oh.
He's done you there. Meanwhile, John Owens is more positive, saying, anyone remember England's game with Trinidad and Tobago in World Cup 2006? This game is a ringer for that one. England will win 2-0 with a late header by Crouch after a foul and a Gerrard screamer. England qualify from the group, and when they get knocked out on penalties, all the talk is of unlucky England. No one will ever remember how bad they've been tonight.
Well,
we'll remember, boy.
Egg on your face, mate, because it was bad. It was still bad now. We didn't see any fouls or anything like that that would help England.
And another point is that people will remember because it is now preserved in history
forever.
I think this is the most in-depth document on this game of all time.
You just have to take our word for it, don't you?
Yeah. But England almost creates a goal for Algeria. So it's almost a total mess up from England's seemingly only fit centre-back John Terry, who plays an awful pass back to Calamity James, who has to race out of goal to stop Kadir to getting onto it. He kicks it against him and it's a goal kick. Oh.
That would have been awful.
Yeah. Can you imagine? As you mentioned, if David James raced out to a bad back pass, kicked it against an Algeria player and it went in and England have 1-0 down.
It'd be one of those things on Pro or Football Manager where you just smash the controller and turn off the PlayStation.
I think Capello would have gone onto the pitch. He would have ripped the shirt off Emil Heskey's back, slapped him on the face, and just started kicking his legs.
What had Emil Heskey done?
He's the biggest one.
Oh right, just as a dominance thing. Yeah. I'll show the whole players. I'll tackle David. I'll tackle David James and Emil Heskey.
Oh God! Imagine what he'd do to Frank Lampard.
Oh, who again has done nothing. I mean, I don't want to pick on Lampard because no one's done anything at this point either.
No, true. Capello is soothed though because he gets a little birthday treat.
Fabio Capello, если не будет одержана победа в сегодняшнем матче, продолжает уже тему битловской песни. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Буду ли я тебе нужен? Будешь ли ты меня кормить в 64 года? Будет ли он нужен? Это можно адресовать футбольной ассоциации Англии. У Фабио Капелло контракт.
That was very odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very odd. The commentator's singing When I'm 64 to Capello.
They are scraping the barrel. There's nothing going on.
Even they're scraping the barrel, aren't they?
They're probably looking at each other going, should we do this third verse? Musical interlude? Can we hum that? I don't know.
No. Speaking of the birthday boy, Capello, I mentioned earlier, Gareth Barry, did they put too much into him coming back and being the person to change it all? Because
did Capello put too much into him?
Did Capello do it? Did England put too much into him? Maybe just on Capello first. Did he think
he seems like the type of player that Capello would like? And you're saying, did he think, once we get him back,
everything will be fine,
and neglected other stuff because it was just like, well, we may as well not fully try until we got Gareth Barry.
Yeah.
I think he neglected Michael Carrick. I've said it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Capello, I think his mind was elsewhere. I mean, we as a nation made a big deal about Gareth Barry and he made a big deal about him because he wanted him to play, but he just had so many fires that he had to put out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, we're going to lose the rent on the office here. Like, the lamp's coming soon. We just need to get the lamp and everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. The lamp's back.
Well, I think it's become a bit of an infamous one over the years, the amount of hype and impact we put on the return of our Lord and Saviour, Gareth Barry.
And we do it a lot with a lot of England players anyway. You look at Wayne Rooney for the 2006 World Cup as well. That was seen that, they stuttered through the groups.
That is Wayne Rooney, though, in 2006.
Oh, yeah, very different. But I think that's a bit of it kind of bleeds over into other tournaments of we made a big fuss over Beckham and Rooney and these other players.
Look, man,
Gareth Barry's the most important. And he did have an important role for England. He's a really good player, technically good, positionally usually spot on. But at this point, for him, I mean, again, time means nothing at this here, but he's still on the pitch at this point of the game. And you think, you don't need sideways passes, you don't need anything else. Maybe you do pick Gerrard and Lampard in the midfield and just hope.
No, we maybe in this game, but we did need that type of player. We know that, but that's in theory. If everyone else is on form, that's when you get the benefit out of a player like Gareth Barry.
Yeah.
Is if he allows Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney, and all these, Aaron Lennon, to play at their best. But if everyone else is playing absolutely awful, he's not going to lift everyone around him.
No, I fully agree on that. I think that's absolutely fair.
Back to it then. For God's sake, Emil Heskey's running down the right. He has a cross blocked. And it loops towards goal, and it's on the roof of the net. Gerrard has a header saved from a corner, straight at the goalkeeper with no pair on it. And yeah, sorry, I got a little bit excited there because Heskey was running.
There's a shot on target.
It's one of his last involvements in the game as Jermaine Defoe was brought on for him. I mean, Wayne Rooney, we haven't said his name once.
That's a very good point. No, not in terms of like anything that's happened on the pitch. I mean, I watching this game, actually, the only thing that really did stand out was how bad Rooney is. I don't even think he barely has like a completed pass of note to think about. I think maybe there's one which, even though there's one where he plays it out wide to Ashley Cole, and it's one of those where you're trying to get the fullbacks up the pitch, so you play it slightly in front of him. Even that's off. Like anything like towards him, anything near goal, it just kind of hits his foot, and it's like the magnet is in the wrong way around, and it just bounces straight off.
With 8 minutes to go, Paul Bowler, asks, not wishing to indulge in hyperbole, of course, but is this possibly the worst result since 1066?
Wow, there you go.
I know, yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, really lightening the mood.
Rubbing it in. And with 6 minutes to go, Gareth Barry is finally brought off for another forward in Peter Crouch.
Yeah, Crouch is on, so your man will be happy as well, with hopefully for a late goal.
And the Gerrard screamer.
Yeah, Defoe has vaguely looked quite lively when he's come on, running in behind Algeria, something that Rooney and Heskey haven't done all game. He has an effort. It's shot over, obviously, so that's the last bit of frivolity in the game as it goes over. And with that, that's full time.
This is the last opportunity for a goal. If ever England needed a hero, it's now. In by Gerrard. Crouch can't get there, and it's all over. The first ever meeting at international level between England and Algeria will frankly not live long in the memory.
Well, what do we say? What do we say?
Well, we've raced through that. That's got to be a record.
I think that was about 20 minutes.
And I think that will last forever.
Yeah.
Unless we cover like an England abandoned game, I don't think we'll ever do that. Even that would have something more to talk about, wouldn't it?
That's a record.
Yeah.
England are booed off by their fans. As Barry Glendenning said at the start, anything other than a win is the worst result since losing to America in 1950, I think.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. It is a disaster. And after the USA game, with that horrible cosmic negative energy that surrounded that, and this game where it was a football game where nothing happened.
No.
I mean, it's bad. It's very bad.
Yeah, I think it's as bad. I think it's worse than actually I remember it being. I remember thinking about it when someone said to me, "Oh, you should watch that game." I'm going, "Yeah, but isn't it one of the worst England games of all time?" And then going, "Well, you know what? Maybe there's something we can talk about, or maybe something interesting to look at." Like, you know, if you look at like a bad film, and you go, "You know what? That was terrible," and you can't stop talking about it. You kind of go, "Well, this was wrong. What was wrong with that set piece?" You know, the plot was all over the place. All that. Like, it's easy to talk about a bad film. It's really hard to talk about a boring film, and it's really hard to talk about a boring game as well. Like when literally nothing happens. It's the same thing. It's worse, actually. It's way worse than watching a bad film or a bad game of football.
Because it's sort of just a mystery as to what actually happened. It feels like Severance.
Yeah, you know? I think I've got on note on here. It actually feels like Severance. It's got like actually when you get to like a certain altitude within like near the football stadium, you just become a different person. Wayne Rooney's like happy face just like goes really like dour and doesn't know what's happened.
We'll put this game out and it'll just be silence for the duration because you can only observe it while you're watching it. I'm not even sure we actually made notes. I think these might be made up by my innie. Fans of the show will get that. Do you want to have a guess how many shots on target England had in this game?
I'm going to go, just because I think we maybe mentioned it, 4?
5?
5, really? That many?
Yeah.
I remember the Lampard and the Gerrard ones. That's it.
21 tackles for England, 26 for Algeria. Yellow card each. 14 fouls to England, 13 to them. 10 corners to 3. Blocked shots. Algeria had 7 blocked shots. England had 4. Obviously, there's only one stat that matters, and that's 0-0.
Well,
although I'll give you another meaningless stat because I've never seen this one before. Territorial advantage.
What the hell? I haven't even seen that, and we're in the industry of like big brains and XG, and you know.
Are we?
Well, we aren't now these days in terms of like
we're in the era of it.
Oh yeah, and now living it now, not here and now. I've never heard that before.
I guess it just means like being in the other person's half, but it's 51 to 48 in England's favour. So. overall, there is nothing. You can't look at it and go,
there's no positive to take from this.
There's not a positive.
I mean, you actually now get it to the point of a negative, because the most memorable thing that happens in this game is Wayne Rooney comes off the pitch and there's a TV camera put into his face. And this is probably the most memorable thing of the incident of the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he says, nice to hear your own fans booing you. I think in the clip we put in just about the full time, you'll have heard him say that as well.
Yeah, he looks right down the lens as if to address... Well, he knows where it's going, doesn't he? It's going back home or all around the world.
Yeah. I mean, do you think he's right to be annoyed that the fans booed them?
Oh, it's a difficult question. I think maybe a different answer is, I don't know. I'm trying to get to why, like, what sort of annoyance is he? I think he's frustrated with himself. And I think it's a frustration that doesn't just come from this 90 minutes. I think this game was already going to happen before the kickoff like this. I mean, if England would have banged in 6 goals, yeah, fair enough. But they didn't feel like they could, or even like they should. Like, why should we do this? Like, there's no joy to be had from it.
No.
All we're going to do is like prolong. None of us want to be here. He probably did want to be there in a way, but he's just frustrated. It's all building up, and he's not mature enough at this point, and maybe never really got this maturity. He seems quite mature now as a retired footballer.
I think after a little while, I think in kind of the latter part of his career, when almost like he was much more mature. Well, he was mature, but then his body ended up being more mature because he played at such a young age, and he'd always been a man. I mean, we'll be covering the Portugal game pretty soon, and that one, he is a man when you see him in that game. He's 18, and he is all over the places, and he's brilliant.
I don't think he's mature enough mentally to sort this out in a more reasonable manner and just get to the back and try and deal with it in a positive way. I can't say I blame him for being frustrated, but it's really not a good look. Was he right to be annoyed? He was right to be annoyed. Was he right to say what he said down in the camera lens, knowing that it would be seen?
No, I don't think he will. I think he's right to be annoyed, like you say. I don't think he's right to say that, because one of the big things around this era was it's taken us so long to actually get to South Africa. It's cost so much money for those England fans to get there too. I don't believe in booing your team. I just will never kind of get on board with that, because I think you should always go, and it's like, oh, well, I've paid my money, I should express how I feel or however I want to. It's like, well, that doesn't always give you the right actually to be a dickhead a lot of the time. And I think here, where I don't probably agree with the fans, if I was ever going to agree with like a team being booed for a performance, it's this, because it's so annoying. Like, you couldn't even boo when England go out to Iceland, for example. You kind of just let it wash over you and happen, and you go, well, that's incredibly embarrassing. But here, you can't even get your frustration out of, well, that's the end of the tournament. You're almost in purgatory because you've got to go through it all again in another game.
It's a difficult one. I respect Rooney for wearing his heart on his sleeve. I think him saying that is a indictment, not an indictment. It's an indication of what type of player he was and what type of man he was. And he's one of those where you have to say, for all of his faults, he had these plus points, and one of his faults is that he would do stupid things like that. God knows. Let's have a look at the full-time sort of reaction then, aside from that. I mean, there's not even much to say here, really, is there? There was a little study regarding the altitude levels after it that came out. So do you think people are trying to blame this on altitude now, or what?
Yeah, I think there was something at the time by saying, is it because like South Africa, you've got different altitudes, and I don't know where other World Cups were held, but there was actually studies around, well, has it affected the player levels as well? So, in general, this is like across all teams, not just England. So players did run less, 3.1%, when they were at altitudes of 1,200 meters to sea level. Player skill could be affected as well. The study showed of how well they can control the ball, and as well of how much the ball moves. So again, in line with the Jabulani, which probably moved too much, that maybe plays a part in
a game where there's no running, no skill, or no movement. Though it seems irrelevant, doesn't it?
I mean, that's what we've just watched.
let's jump to the aftermath then. So for Algeria, I mean, parties in the street, I would imagine.
Yeah, you'd say so, wouldn't you? A really commendable point for Algeria to take into their final game against the USA, knowing a win actually could put them through to the knockouts.
God, that's good going. Yeah, what got to be one of their best World Cup results ever.
Yeah, you'd have to say so. And again, you'd kind of say deservedly because they've got it. But Algeria are crap as well. Like, we're putting all this on England deservedly because they're the team that should be pressing on. But
yeah, they're crap, but like they played crap, but it's not there. Like all they have to do is get a result. I wouldn't care how bad they're going to play.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter about that. You've got the result. You move on, and they've got a chance still to go through, haven't they?
So let's have a look at the English aftermath then. Obviously, bearing in mind that we are going to come back to this time as well. Full on panic mode, hit that big fat red button.
Yeah, massively. I mean, no player had performed to any level so far. And all the confidence in England came into the tournament had evaporated. You'd had, a few weeks prior to this, England were confident, prepared, highly tipped to win it. Star players in the form of their lives, really. Gerrard, Lampard, Terry, Cole, Rooney, all had incredible seasons. You'd kind of had your steady players around them that were coming back. Glenn Johnson, Barry, Heskey, Lennon, high hopes. But this is kind of what the World Cup does to teams, isn't it? You forget, because it all happens so close, everything can turn from like real positivity to, my God, panic button. This is all got to change. And I do quite love that about the World Cup, where teams have to press panic buttons. If this happened to another team like France that we saw earlier, it's so interesting to watch, because it's schadenfreude of looking at someone else's like terror and awfulness.
And you've got that sort of third round of the group stage coming up where, they become must-watch games, because sometimes you're like, I've got to see if Italy get themselves out of this situation, or France or whatever. But it's England facing this situation. Next time you see us in 2010, we'll be covering the third round again. Well, the third group game against Slovenia. How do England kind of sit in the group as they go into that? Just as a little teaser for listeners to want to come back and find out more about this tournament.
So Slovenia and the USA earlier in the day had drawn 2-2, as we said. Meaning that both USA and England were both on 2 points, and Slovenia were on 4, with England scheduled to play Slovenia in the final game. We'll be back to cover that Slovenia game in a few weeks with that, and England need to win to go through.
And I need more than a few weeks to watch that. One more question remains, Nick. Was this England?
Well, straight up, it's the worst game we'll ever cover. Let's just put that out there now. That's fine. I think an utter shellacking from other teams would be better than over this. And like I say, it's watching a bad film. If it's really bad, it's good to talk about, all that kind of stuff. But this is so dull. I don't even think this is England. You can't even put it into a category of, typical England, can't do this, can't do that. I think it's just not, because we'll never see something this dull again for England.
It's not even football. That's my take. So if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do. Email us at isthisenglandpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at @istvis_England. Thank you very much for listening. This is the worst game we will ever cover, so don't worry if you want to skip this one. I'm presuming nobody's listening by this stage, but please do come back if you are. Thank you very much.
Stranger, that's what time can do.